Well, the evidence suggesting Bryan Kohberger is, in fact, the person responsible for the brutal murders of 4 University of Idaho students seems to keep building. One of the latest revelations, an ID connected with one of the victims reportedly found during a search of Kohberger's residence. But is there any way Kohberger could be found not guilty? Some experts say yes. Here with us now to discuss that possibility is journalist Caitlyn Becker. Caitlyn, thanks so much for being here. It's good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
And Caitlyn, in one of your recent pieces, you write that prosecutors recently disclosed in court documents that a police officer involved in the quadruple murder case is the subject of an internal affairs probe now. What do we know about this, and do you think that that could threaten the trial?
It could, depending on what it is. This potential Brady issue was brought up in court documents, but there is a gag order on this entire case. So we don't know who the officer is, how involved they were in the investigation, just that they were involved in the investigation, or how serious the potential internal investigation about that officer is. So there are a lot of major questions that could come up here. But what the prosecution is doing is they, of course, have to disclose this information, and they want to disclose it on their own terms early on, so that potentially it won't be as big of an issue. But if the officer in question, is heavily involved in the Kohberger investigation, anything to question their integrity on the stand could be a major issue. If it's a huge problem, they likely wouldn't even take the stand.
Interesting. Let's talk about evidence, because, seemingly overwhelming evidence to convict Kohberger for these murders at this point. But you spoke with experts who say there's a lot for his defense to work with. Help us understand that perspective.
What we know so far is that Kohberger's DNA was found on the knife sheath in the house on the 3rd floor next to the body of Madison Mogen. That sounds like he is, they've got him dead to rights. But you have to remember, and this is something that the experts have pointed out, that this was a major party house on campus. And we know this to be a fact because police had responded to noise complaints at the house, typical college stuff, several times. And in one of those, we actually see that not one of the residents is home at the time. Police can't even talk to anyone in the house. The girls had gone to a different party. So this is going to be an avenue in for the defense to say, sure, maybe his DNA was found in the house, but it could have gotten there anyway. It could have gotten there in any party. It was maybe touch DNA, not really huge. So it's not that big of a deal. There are a lot of different ways where they can sort of poke holes in the science, how it was collected, and then kind of write it off a little bit as maybe he was just innocently there. So it's going to be a tough hill to climb, but probable cause and that seed of reasonable doubt might be possible.
I mean, I think I understand that with the knife sheath, but the ID has been called the smoking ID. I mean, sure, it's a party house. Maybe he drops a knife sheath there. But how on earth would his defense explain, and you are not his defense, so I'm not making you do this in front of a jury, but how on earth could what are experts telling you about how his defense could go about explaining how he ended up with an ID of one of the victims in his car in his residence?
So here's what I understand about the ID. The ID that the source who told, NewsNation, which was an amazing source for you guys, said that there was an ID connected to one of the victims in the home found in the searches of one of his residents. And when I looked through all of the documents, I found that IDs were found at his parents' house. And there was a lot of talk as to whether or not the ID was found in a glove box, but I think the ID was found in a glove inside of a box. That's how it was written. So it sounds like something that was hidden. I'm curious as to whose glove that is. If it is a female glove, perhaps could it have belonged to one of the victims? The question here is going to be, when was the ID taken? Did one of the victims potentially leave their ID at a bar, at a restaurant, and this person happened to pick it up? It sounds pretty unlikely to me, but could you reason that away as it's possible? If it was reported missing weeks before the murders, it's going to be harder to connect.
I mean, it's not looking good, Caitlyn.
It is not.
However you slice it.
I agree with you 100%. I worked on 2 of these pieces. One, putting together laying out that map of all the evidence against him, and then the other would be the potential routes that the defense can take. It's going to be an uphill climb. If I'm on the jury, I don't think I'm buying any of this.
I mean, but to your point, and you write in this article, it only takes one juror, and that's what experts have been telling you as well.
That is exactly what experts have been telling me, is that it takes one juror just to question, maybe it's possible it isn't him, because the burden of proof in this is beyond a reasonable doubt. So if one person has a reasonable doubt about one bit of evidence, that could get us a hung jury.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.